And it's written by Richard and Florence Atwater. And the illustrations that are in here are by Robert Lawson. All right, here we go. Chapter 1, Stillwater. It was an afternoon in late September in the pleasant little city of Stillwater. Mr. Popper, the house painter, was going home from work. He was carrying his buckets, his ladders, his boards, so that he had rather a hard time moving along. He was spattered here and there with paint and calcimine, and there were bits of wallpaper clinging to his hair and his whiskers, for he was rather an untidy man. The children looked up from their play to smile at him. As he passed, and the housewife, seeing him, said, "Oh dear, there goes Mr. Popper. I must remember to ask John to have the house painted over the spring." So this is the picture it shows me of Mr. Popper. You can see how he's not very clean. That means untidy, means not too clean, right? And he's carrying all of his supplies. No one knew what went on inside of Mr. Popper's head, and no one guessed that he would one day be the most famous person in Stillwater. He was a dreamer. Even when he was busiest smoothing down the paste on the wallpaper or painting the outside of other people's houses, he would forget what he was doing. Once he had painted 3 sides of a kitchen green and the other side yellow. The housewife, instead of being angry and making him do it over, had liked it so well that she had made him leave it that way. And all the other housewives, when they saw it, admired it too. So that pretty soon everybody in Stillwater had 2 colored kitchens. The reason Mr. Popper was so absent-minded was that he was always dreaming about faraway countries. Absent-minded means forgetting things. He had never been out of Stillwater. Not that he was unhappy. He had a nice little house of his own, a wife whom he loved dearly, and 2 children named Janie and Bill. Still, it would have been nice, he often thought, if he could have seen something of the world before he met Mrs. Popper and settled down. He had never hunted tigers in India or climbed the peaks of the Himalayas or dived for pearls in the South Seas. Above all, he had never seen the poles. That was what he regretted most of all. He had never seen those great shining white expanses of ice and snow. How he wished that he had been a scientist instead of a house painter in Stillwater, so that he might have joined some of the great polar expeditions. Since he could not go, he was always thinking about them. Whenever he heard that a polar movie was in town, he was the first person at the ticket window, and often he sat through 3 shows. Whenever the town library had a new book about the Arctic, or the Antarctic, or the North Pole, or the South Pole, Mr. Popper was the first to borrow it. Indeed, he had read so much about polar explorers that he could name all of them and tell you what each had done. He was quite an authority on the subject. That means he was an expert on the subject. His evenings were the best time of all. Then he could sit down in his little house and read about those regions, those cold regions at the top and bottom of the earth. As he read, he could take the little globe that Janie and Bill had given him the Christmas